Before the police even realize a bank robbery is happening, the criminals inside have already disabled every camera, taken control of the hostages, and prepared an escape plan so brilliant that no one will know who to arrest. The man behind this impossible heist is Russell, one of the most calculated thieves in the world. He is not walking into this bank hoping to get lucky. Every second of the robbery has already been planned. Russell and his 3 partners arrive outside a major New York bank in an ordinary van. Instead of rushing inside with weapons, they disguise themselves as a cleaning crew. Wearing maintenance uniforms and carrying cleaning equipment, they enter without attracting the slightest suspicion. For the customers and employees, it appears to be another normal business day. None of them realize that the people dressed as cleaners are about to seize the entire building. Once everyone is in position, Russell pulls out a powerful light and aims it directly at the security cameras. One after another, the cameras are disabled. The moment the final feed goes dark, the crew puts on masks, draws their weapons, and releases smoke across the lobby. Panic erupts instantly. Before anyone can escape, the robbers force every customer and employee onto the floor. Within seconds, the entire bank is under Russell's control. But the smoke drifting through the entrance catches the attention of a security officer outside. As the guard approaches to investigate, Russell appears behind the glass door and points a gun directly at him. He warns the officer that the bank is filled with hostages. If the police attempt to enter, Russell will begin killing them, one at a time. Then, he locks the door. The security officer immediately calls for backup. News of the hostage situation spreads quickly, and within minutes, heavily armed police units surround the bank from every direction. Despite their numbers, the officers cannot storm the building. Russell's threat has made any direct assault far too dangerous. Inside, the robbers order every hostage to stand in a line. They collect their phones one by one, cutting off all communication with the outside world. However, when Russell reaches the bank manager, there is no phone to surrender. Russell asks him where it is. The manager calmly claims that he left it at home, but Russell does not believe him. He gives the man one opportunity to tell the truth, warning that if the phone is discovered inside the bank, the consequences will be severe. The manager refuses to change his story. Russell responds by searching through the phones already taken from the other hostages. He finds the manager's number and calls it. A ringtone immediately echoes from behind a nearby door. The manager had thrown his phone there moments earlier. Realizing he has been lied to, Russell drags the manager into a private room and brutally beats him. The other hostages hear everything from outside, and Russell's message becomes perfectly clear. Anyone who tries to outsmart him will suffer the same fate. Meanwhile, Detective Keith is introduced at the police station. Keith is considered an honest and capable officer, but his career is currently hanging by a thread. Several days earlier, approximately $150,000 seized from a smuggler disappeared from police custody. Keith has been blamed for the missing money, placing both his reputation and future at risk. His superior suddenly arrives with news of the bank robbery. For Keith, this dangerous situation may also be his only chance to save his career. If he resolves the hostage crisis successfully, he could earn a promotion and possibly clear his name. He immediately heads toward the bank and takes charge of the negotiation. At the same time, news of the robbery reaches the bank's wealthy owner, Arthur. At first, Arthur appears completely unconcerned. He has more than enough money to cover whatever the thieves could possibly steal. Then he asks which branch has been targeted. His assistant tells him it is the Wall Street location. Arthur's expression changes instantly. The stolen cash does not frighten him. Something hidden inside that particular branch does. Arthur quickly contacts a woman named Madeline. She is intelligent, persuasive, and highly skilled at solving sensitive problems for powerful people. Wealthy clients pay her enormous amounts because she can gain access to places and people that others cannot. Arthur offers her whatever fee she demands, but the assignment must be handled discreetly. He reveals that a private safe deposit box is stored inside the bank's vault. It is box number 392, and whatever it contains must never fall into anyone else's hands. Arthur wants Madeline to enter the bank, recover the contents, and deliver them directly to him before the robbers discover them. Before accepting, Madeline asks whether retrieving the item could place her in danger. Arthur assures her that the contents are harmless to everyone except him. They have existed since before Madeline was born, but if they ever become public, he will be forced to answer questions he has avoided for decades. That explanation tells Madeline everything she needs to know. The box does not contain money or jewelry. It contains evidence of something Arthur did long ago. Back inside the bank, Russell's team continues following the plan. One member of the crew is a woman, but the robbers never use their real names. Instead, they call one another Steve, Stevie, and variations of the same name, so the hostages cannot identify them later. Russell separates the men and women into different lines. He then orders everyone to remove their clothes and replace them with identical coveralls provided by the robbers. Each hostage also receives the same mask worn by Russell's crew. Then the robbers change into identical clothing themselves. Now everyone inside the building looks exactly alike. This is not simply meant to frighten the hostages. Russell knows the police may eventually enter the bank. When that happens, they will be unable to tell the criminals from the civilians. One wrong decision could cause the officers to shoot an innocent person, while the real thieves disappear among the crowd. With the disguise system complete, Russell and his partners move toward a storage room. After examining it, Russell says it is exactly what they need. The team begins digging into the floor. This reveals that their operation is far more complicated than an ordinary bank robbery. Russell did not choose this room by accident, and whatever he intends to accomplish requires a hidden space beneath the building. Outside, Keith studies the bank's security system from the police command center. He attempts to access the surveillance feeds, hoping to understand the robbers' positions. Every camera is offline. Keith has no idea how many criminals are inside, where the hostages are being held, or what Russell is doing behind the locked doors. Then the bank entrance suddenly opens. The robbers release one of the employees. His hands are tied, his eyes are covered, and a suitcase has been secured around his neck. Police officers carefully approach him. When they remove the blindfold, his long beard makes several officers fear that he may be carrying an explosive. They ask whether the suitcase contains a bomb. The frightened employee says it does not. The police remove the case and open it from a safe distance. Instead of an explosive, they find Russell's demands. By $9 that night, the robbers want 2 buses and a fully fueled private aircraft with a pilot waiting for them. If the police refuse, Russell claims that one hostage will be executed on camera every hour after the deadline. Responsibility for those deaths, the message says, will belong to the police. In the bank's basement, the hostages are being held together inside a locked room. One young man becomes increasingly frustrated with the mask covering his face. He finally removes it, claiming he can barely breathe. The others warn him to put it back on, but he refuses. He believes the robbers forced everyone to wear identical clothes so the police might accidentally shoot the hostages instead of the criminals. Terrified and angry, he begins shouting. The other captives desperately try to silence him, knowing the robbers will hear the noise. But the man ignores them. Russell soon enters the room, grabs him, and drags him away. Moments later, the hostages hear the young man being beaten in another room. Once again, Russell uses violence to eliminate any thought of resistance. Outside, Keith struggles to find a safe way into the building. The robbers have removed his access to the cameras, disguised themselves as hostages, and threaten to execute civilians if the police interfere. Then, Russell sends another message. Everyone inside is hungry, and he wants food delivered. For the first time, Keith sees an opportunity. He decides to send pizzas for the entire bank. A small listening device will be hidden inside one of the boxes, allowing the police to hear the robbers' conversations. Pizza is the perfect choice, because the food should bring everyone together. If the criminals discuss their plan while eating, Keith's team may finally learn how many robbers are inside and what they intend to do. The delivery is sent into the bank, and the officers gather around their equipment wearing headphones. A signal begins transmitting. Keith expects to hear Russell giving instructions, but the voices coming through the device are speaking an unfamiliar language. No one in the command center can identify it. Unable to understand the recording, Keith plays it over an outside speaker, hoping someone in the gathered crowd might recognize the language. A woman immediately steps forward and claims that she understands it. She is brought into the command center and listens carefully. Instead of translating, she suddenly begins laughing. Keith asks what is so funny. The woman explains that the voice belongs to a former Albanian president who has been dead for years. The robbers are not having a real conversation at all. They are playing an old recorded speech beside the transmitter. Russell knew the listening device would be hidden inside the food. Once again, he has anticipated the police strategy and turned it against them. While Keith attempts to regain control, Madeline arrives with the mayor of New York. She already possesses sensitive information about the mayor, giving her enough influence to secure his personal cooperation. The mayor introduces her to Keith as someone capable of making the situation easier. He asks the detective to arrange direct contact between Madeline and the leader of the robbers. Keith refuses. He does not want an outsider interfering in his investigation. Madeline calmly mentions the promotion he could receive by resolving the crisis. Keith replies that if he deserves a promotion, he will earn it through his own work. Then, Madeline brings up the missing evidence money and the investigation threatening his career. She offers him a deal. If Keith allows her to speak with Russell, she will use her influence to make the case against him disappear permanently. Keith realizes she has the power to do exactly that. With his career on the line, he reluctantly agrees. He calls the bank, and Russell answers. Madeline takes the phone and tells Russell that she may be able to help him. She asks why he is robbing the bank. Russell simply answers that he wants money. Madeline offers him more than he could ever steal from the vault. She explains that she is not a police officer and has no interest in stopping his operation. She only wants access to one safe deposit box. Russell agrees to meet her and allows her inside. A short time later, Madeline stands face to face with the mastermind of the robbery. She tells him there is no possible way for his crew to escape the surrounded building. Her offer is simple. Russell must surrender and allow her to retrieve the contents of a private box. In return, she will arrange a reduced sentence and ensure that he receives $2 million after his release. Russell listens before asking which box she wants. Then, he calmly mentions number 392. Madeline freezes. Until that moment, she believed Arthur's secret might still be safe. Russell's question confirms that he has already found it. He demands to know why she really came to the bank. Madeline refuses to explain, so Russell decides to explain it for her. He tells her a story from World War II. During the war, an American worked at a bank in Switzerland. Instead of helping innocent people, the man developed profitable relationships with Nazi officials. He betrayed others, benefited from their suffering, and built a fortune using blood money. That fortune eventually allowed him to become one of the richest and most respected men in America. Russell then produces several documents taken from box 392. They are proof of Arthur's past. Madeline asks for the documents, but Russell refuses. They are not merely evidence, they are his insurance policy. If Russell is captured after leaving the bank, Arthur will have to use his power to protect him. Otherwise, Russell will expose the documents and reveal Arthur's history to the entire world. Madeline finally understands the situation. Russell is not an ordinary thief, and there is no offer large enough to make him surrender the evidence. He has transformed Arthur's greatest secret into protection for himself. With no way to complete her assignment, Madeline exits the bank. Keith immediately asks what Russell told her, but she refuses to reveal anything about the documents or box 392. Inside, the robbers begin moving the hostages into separate rooms. Stevie enters one group, selects 4 people, and takes them into another locked area. After placing them inside, she suddenly starts screaming for help. One of her partners appears, pretends that Stevie is another hostage, and throws her into the room with the others. The civilians never realize that she is part of the robbery crew. Russell's team is deliberately mixing themselves among the hostages. By the time the police enter, even the people trapped inside will be unable to identify which masked individuals were criminals. Every detail was prepared before the robbery began. Meanwhile, the excavation inside the storage room is finally completed. Outside, Keith is running out of options. Russell's deadline has arrived, but the detective still does not understand the true plan, how the robbers intend to escape, or what they have been digging beneath the bank. The time for the demanded buses and getaway aircraft has expired, leaving Keith trapped between launching a dangerous assault and waiting to see what Russell does next. Just as Keith begins running out of time, Russell calls the command center and starts distracting him with pointless questions and riddles. Keith quickly realizes the conversation has no real purpose. Russell is only keeping him occupied. The detective studies everything that has happened. The robbers gave the police one deadline, allowed it to pass, and then extended it without harming anyone. That means the buses and aircraft were never truly part of their escape plan. They are deliberately wasting the police's time because they still need to complete something inside the bank. Keith decides that waiting any longer will only help Russell. He calls the bank and lies, claiming that the police have arranged everything the robbers requested. However, before handing over the vehicles, Keith demands permission to enter the bank and personally confirm that every hostage is still alive. Russell unexpectedly agrees. When Keith steps inside, he finally sees the true brilliance of the operation. Every person is wearing the same coveralls and identical mask. The civilians and criminals are completely indistinguishable. Even standing only a few feet away, Keith cannot determine who belongs to Russell's crew. Russell leads him through the building, showing him different groups of hostages. In the final room, Keith notices 3 frightened people sitting without masks. Russell explains that they refused to cooperate, so they were separated from everyone else. After confirming that the hostages appear unharmed, Keith is escorted back toward the entrance. Before leaving, he asks Russell why he does not simply walk outside and surrender. Russell calmly replies that his work is not finished. Once it is complete, he promises he will leave through the same front entrance in full view of the detective. Russell then asks whether Keith wants anything else. Half joking, Keith admits that he wants to marry his girlfriend, but he cannot afford the kind of ring she deserves. The conversation appears strangely relaxed, but Keith is waiting for an opening. Without warning, he kicks Russell in the chest and sends him falling down the steps. Keith lunges forward and tries to remove his mask, hoping to finally see his face. Before he can reach him, another robber appears with a weapon and forces the detective to stop. Instead of killing Keith, the crew simply throws him outside. Once he returns to the command center, Keith understands exactly what he is facing. Russell is not improvising. He is prepared for every police strategy, and the entire robbery feels less like a crime than a carefully controlled game. Russell even reminded Keith that, under the current circumstances, the police cannot justify storming the bank unless a hostage is seriously harmed. But Keith's attack has made Russell furious. A short time later, the robbers drag a man onto the roof. With cameras watching, Russell appears to shoot him in front of the police. The situation changes instantly. Keith believes Russell has finally made his first mistake. Now that a hostage has apparently been murdered, the police have legal justification to enter the building. He orders a tactical unit to prepare for an assault. Yet just before the team moves in, Keith hesitates. Russell has anticipated every decision so far. A man this careful would not suddenly commit an obvious murder without considering the consequences. Keith starts wondering whether the execution itself is another trap designed to force the police inside. Then he remembers the bearded employee who was released earlier with the suitcase hanging from his neck. Keith retrieves the case and examines it again. Hidden inside is a transmitter. The device was not left there accidentally. Russell's crew has been listening to every conversation inside the police command center. They know the officers' plans, their timing, and exactly how the tactical team intends to enter. Keith immediately contacts the assault commander and warns him that the robbers may have prepared explosives or another ambush. He orders the unit to withdraw. The commander refuses. He believes his team can handle the situation and continues toward the bank. Inside, Russell already knows the police are coming. Before the tactical officers can enter, the robbers fill the entire building with thick smoke. Russell unlocks the hostage rooms and orders everyone to run toward the exits. Dozens of people suddenly pour from the bank wearing identical masks and clothing. The police cannot fire because any person in the crowd could be an innocent hostage. Officers surround the escaping group, force everyone onto the ground, and restrain them one at a time. At the same moment, the tactical unit enters the bank and searches every room. They find no robbers. Russell's 3 partners have blended into the crowd and escaped alongside the hostages. But Russell is not among them. Keith has memorized Russell's height, build, skin tone, and voice. He carefully examines every detained person and becomes certain that the mastermind never left the building with the others. Yet when the police search the bank again, Russell has vanished without a trace. The officers now face an impossible problem. They know 3 of the detained people are criminals, but everyone wore the same disguise. The hostages cannot identify the robbers because they never saw their faces, and the crew members are now pretending to be victims. The entire group is transported for questioning. When officers reach the vault, they discover something even more confusing. Not a single dollar has been taken. Every stack of cash remains exactly where it was. The guns left behind are also fake and incapable of firing real bullets. Police then discover fabric covered in red liquid, proving that the man on the roof was never shot. The execution was staged to provoke the assault. Russell wanted the police to enter, because the attack created the confusion his crew needed to escape among the hostages. Investigators search every inch of the bank, but they cannot find the hole the robbers had been digging, or any evidence explaining why they entered the building. Keith cannot understand it. The criminals risked their lives, surrounded themselves with police, and held dozens of people hostage, yet they apparently stole nothing. The police are certain that 3 robbers are hidden among the detained civilians, But Russell's deception makes proving their identities nearly impossible. One suspect is the young man who removed his mask in the basement and was supposedly dragged away and beaten. In reality, he was one of Russell's crew members. He deliberately removed the mask and challenged the robbers in front of the real hostages. Russell then pretended to punish him so everyone would remember him as another victim. During questioning, police become suspicious of the young man, but a female hostage confirms his story. She remembers him removing his mask, causing trouble, and being taken away by the criminals. Her testimony makes him appear innocent, so the police release him. Stevie uses a similar trick. Earlier, she selected 4 hostages and locked them in another room. After leaving, she began screaming and allowed one of her partners to throw her back inside, as though she had also been captured. Now those 4 people confidently tell investigators that Stevie was imprisoned with them. She answers every question calmly and convincingly, removing the remaining suspicion against her. The third robber has an even stronger defense. When Keith entered the bank, Russell personally showed him 3 unmasked people sitting inside a room. Because the detective personally witnessed one of them being held as a hostage, he unknowingly becomes the man's strongest witness. With no physical evidence connecting any suspect to the robbery, Russell's 3 partners walk free. Keith later explains to his superior that the entire crime was planned perfectly from beginning to end. Every threat, disguise, fake weapon, and staged confrontation existed for a reason. His captain sees no reason to continue the investigation. No one was killed, no money was reported missing, and the bank's owner has not filed a complaint. From the department's perspective, there is no clear crime left to solve. The captain orders Keith to close the case, but Keith refuses to let it go. While examining the bank's records, he discovers something unusual. Every safe deposit box is officially listed except number 392. There is no paperwork showing who owns it or what it contained. Keith realizes the robbers did not come for the vault's cash. They came specifically for whatever was hidden inside Arthur's unregistered box. Meanwhile, Madeline meets with Arthur and delivers the bad news. Russell has taken the documents from box 392. He intends to use them as leverage if he is ever arrested, forcing Arthur to protect him or face public exposure. But Madeline knows the documents were not the only reason Russell risked such an elaborate robbery. She tells Arthur that she is not foolish enough to believe the crew entered the bank only for old papers. There were also valuable diamonds inside the box. Russell's team left behind millions in traceable bank money, because the unregistered diamonds could be taken without anyone officially reporting them missing. Arthur finally admits that the box also contained an extremely valuable ring. It once belonged to the wife of a wealthy Parisian banker, who had been Arthur's friend during World War II. When the banker and his family were captured, Arthur had the power to help them. Instead, Nazi officials offered him money, and he chose profit over their lives. Arthur built his fortune from that betrayal. After confessing the truth, he gives Madeline a large check and orders her never to reveal what she has learned. She accepts the payment and leaves. 1 week passes. The police believe Russell escaped somehow, but the truth is far more unbelievable. He never left the bank. Earlier, Russell selected the storage room because it provided the perfect place to construct a hidden compartment. His crew moved the shelves forward, built a concealed space behind them, and then returned everything to its original position. The hole they dug into the floor was not an escape tunnel. It was a temporary bathroom that allowed Russell to remain hidden without leaving the compartment. While the police searched for him across the city, he was still inside the bank, quietly waiting behind the storage room wall. After 1 week, the investigation has cooled down, the officers are gone, and normal business has resumed. Russell finally packs the stolen diamonds into a bag and prepares to leave. At that exact moment, Keith returns to inspect the safe deposit area. Russell already knows the detective is coming because his partners are watching from outside and have warned him. As Russell walks through the lobby in ordinary clothes, he deliberately bumps into Keith. The detective barely notices him and continues inside. Russell then walks calmly through the front entrance, fulfilling the promise he made during the hostage crisis. He escapes through the main doors directly in front of Keith without being recognized. The crew has completed the perfect robbery. They did not steal any registered bank money. No one can prove the diamonds existed. And every identified suspect has already been released. Keith eventually reaches safe deposit box 392 and opens it. Inside, he finds a piece of chewing gum and the valuable ring Arthur described to Madeline. The presence of the ring confirms that Russell opened the box before the police discovered it. A message has also been left for the detective. It says, Follow the ring. Keith understands that Russell intentionally left the evidence behind. The thief took the diamonds for himself, but wants the detective to uncover Arthur's war crimes. Keith takes the ring and confronts Arthur. He asks the banker what was stolen during the robbery. Arthur claims that nothing is missing. Keith then produces the ring and warns him that the truth will soon become public. After leaving Arthur, Keith meets Madeline and the mayor. Madeline congratulates him and reveals that the investigation into the missing $150,000 has been dropped. Keith is relieved, but he knows Madeline and the mayor helped protect Arthur's secret. He gives them the contact information for the U.S. office responsible for investigating war crimes. Keith demands that they report Arthur and expose how he profited from innocent people during World War II. If they refuse, Keith promises to reveal their involvement in hiding evidence connected to the bank robbery. He then returns home, where his girlfriend is waiting. While emptying the pockets of his coat, Keith discovers a small diamond. At first, he has no idea how it got there. Then he remembers the stranger who bumped into him inside the bank. That man was Russell. During the brief collision, Russell secretly placed the diamond in Keith's pocket. Keith looks at the diamond and smiles, realizing that Russell defeated the entire police department, exposed Arthur's darkest secret, and still found a way to give the detective exactly what he needed. And with that, the perfect bank robbery finally comes to an end.